Hey everybody, today is January 14th, so we'll be looking at January 13th's MTG stocks. And we have a few in price increases here. We are getting closer and closer to Theros, so we'll be looking at a couple of Theros cards later. And we can kind of see they're, as I've said before, they're going to kind of bounce around everywhere, and most of these will probably settle down to nothing, and maybe a couple of these will go way up. But I think kind of some big things that will happen soon is Oko should be going down because he was banned. If that hasn't happened already, let's see. Let me find an Oko on here. Oko, yeah, he's going down pretty quick, as you can see. He'll be yeah, yep. So what happens when you get banned in standard and modern, and I'm guessing Pioneer as well. So he's going to be going down. Hermit Druid we kind of looked at a little bit, and we can see that he's been going back down. So as I said before, a lot of these spikes, they kind of just, they'll spike up because of some weird thing, and then they'll spike up way high, and then they'll settle back down into a more something that makes a little bit more sense for the card, I'd say. But anyways, aside from that, let's go ahead and look at our first card today, which is Paradigm Shift. Paradigm Shift went from 335 to 469, and it is a reserved list card, so keep that in mind. It's kind of an interesting card. It costs 1 colorless and a blue, and it's a sorcery. Exile all cards from your library, then shuffle your graveyard into your library. Really, I could see this is basically, I don't know if it's going to be in like Legacy or anything like that, but for Commander specifically, this is pretty much for Labman or anything that is something like Labman. Labman basically, if you draw a card, and when you have no cards in your deck, instead of losing, you win. That's pretty much what Labman does. So I assume that's the main gist of why you want this, or I guess it is a way to counter mill decks, where basically if someone's milled you down to your last 10 cards, and then you can just basically Paradigm Shift and be like, okay, well, I get my graveyard back into my library, and so that could be bad for the mill player. But I'm assuming it's more of a win condition more than it is a mill counter. But interesting to note. Let's go ahead and go to our second card here, which is Lazav the Multifarious. This one went from 357 to 469. It's from Guilds of Ravnica. It's a pretty recent set. Well, I guess semi-recent set now. It's almost been a year. Ooh. If not a year. Ooh. But anyways, I don't think this card was worth like a ton, but it seems like it's been getting a little bit more popular. So Lazav the Multifarious cost a blue and a black. It is a 1/3 legendary creature shapeshifter, and when he enters the battlefield, surveil 1. This was a new mechanic introduced in the guild set, and this is, look at the top card of your library, you may put that card into your graveyard. I kind of like this mechanic quite a bit because it's basically scry, but it's very good if you are going for potentially a graveyard deck, or just cycling through your deck as much as possible, or if you're trying to self-mill yourself even. Pretty good for that too. But then it helps Lazav quite a bit, and well, it's only one time, I guess, so it's not like amazing, but you can use this to your advantage for sure. And basically his other ability is you can pay X, he becomes a copy of target creature in your graveyard with command cost X, except it's Lazav. His name is Lazav, and then it's legendary in addition to his other types and has this ability. So kind of the idea is that, so let's say if you have Labman again, because Labman's pretty good for Dimir deck, because Dimir is all about milling, and they can self-mill probably pretty easily as well. So let's say if you put Labman in your graveyard, then you can pay, I think Labman's cost is 3, I'm not sure on that, but I'm pretty sure it's 3. And now Lazav is a copy of Labman. And so at that point in time, this is a better way to have a little bit better control over your win condition, because if someone destroys Labman, that could be bad for you. If that's your main win condition, I would generally, when I see something like Labman, I would want it to be an alternate win condition, but if you're going competitive EDH, that may be more of your actual win condition. But anyways, this is a way to, it's not really cheating out creatures, because you still have to pay the cost. I would say it's more mana fixing, in the sense of like, if you put So let's say if Lazav isn't your commander, which he could be your commander, which is pretty nice. But if he's not your commander, you can. So if you have a Wooburg deck, for instance, and you put like a creature that costs Wooburg, or all colors basically, instead of having to have all those colors, Lazav can just pay 5 colorless and then become that creature. And then kind of the other thing that I said is that he still retains his ability when he copies that creature. So when you whenever a better creature comes into your graveyard, you can use his ability again. I like the idea of Lazav, and he's pretty fun. I have made the other Lazav commander deck out of that, and that's pretty fun to be like a shapeshifter tribal sort of deal. I feel like this is, while that one is more based on your opponent's milling, this one is much more based on you milling. So very different, which I can appreciate them doing same Lazav 2 different ways. Let's go into our third card of the night, which is Piracy. Piracy was a price decrease, which went from $27.78 to $17.39. This was the starter version here. So starter, I guess, has the white border, and then Portal has the black border there. But Piracy is kind of an interesting card here. It's kind of worded very weirdly, which I like. So the non-errata version, or the non-oracle version, or whatever you want to call it, Piracy cost blue. It's a sorcery, and it says this turn you may tap lands you don't control to help pay for your spells. Kind of weird. And then what its oracle text says, until on the turn you may tap lands you don't control for mana. Spend this mana only to cast your spells. So I think I read this wrong when I first read it. Now I understand it, and now it makes more sense. At first I thought it was giving everything flash for some reason, but I'm like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. You basically, if your opponents have left open mana, you can then use that mana. Now, of course, the downside to Piracy is the fact that I can only assume they can respond to this. Can they? I don't know. Maybe they can. Surely they can. I don't know. It's kind of weird because it's a sorcery. So I guess this... This is interesting because I'm not sure exactly how this works. I would want to say that they can respond to this. And what's interesting about this is that, well, you're like, okay, well, if they can respond to this, then why does it matter? But basically, it's a 2 mana wipe out their mana pools, all your opponents, or just one of your opponents. And this could be good if you're trying to make sure they don't have any counter spells, or less likely to have counter spells if you consider things like blue spell that doesn't cost anything, Pact of Negation, or something like that. Interesting card. I guess I could see it being kind of useful for just making sure you have a easier turn. Let's say that. Okay, I looked it up. And yeah, they can respond to you casting Piracy. But if they don't respond to you casting Piracy by tapping their lands, then since you hold priority, you get to tap their land. So they have to use all their mana as soon as you use Piracy as a kind of like a response, I guess. But so yeah, I think I kind of read a little bit, and people are saying that it's pretty much because it's rare, but there may be other reasons for it, more so now, because that was an older post. But interesting card nonetheless. All right, let's go ahead and go to our fourth card, which is Yawgmoth, Thran Physician. This went from $9.95 to $21.52. And it's kind of interesting because this card was like $20, and then it slowly creeped down, and then it suddenly spiked back up. Not sure exactly why, but this was not in the daily. This was like a weekly card that's kind of happened over the week. Anyways, what Yawgmoth the Thran Physician does, it costs 2 colorless. It's a black. It's a 2/4 legendary creature, human cleric. It has protection from humans, and you can pay 1 life, sacrifice a creature, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature, and draw a card. You can also pay black, discard a card, and proliferate. Proliferate is basically you can put an extra counter on any counter on a player or permanent. So for instance, if you have a +1/+1 counter on a creature, if it had 5 +1/+1 counters on it, you can then give it one more and I'll have 6 total +1/+1 counters on it. Or if you had poison counters, for instance, you can give someone an extra poison counter. Or if there's experience counters, not sure about that one, but I assume maybe. I'm not gonna say either way on that one. I need a better example. Or like I don't think time counters work because that's an exile. Slumber counters, for instance, I don't think those are an exile. Like there's some that are like comes into play with slumber counters. You can give them more slumber counters, so it makes your when people are trying to get rid of those slumber counters, it's harder. That's a weird example, but you could do it probably. So I can see why this card is pretty strong, and I'm surprised it even got down to where it was, like $10. I mean, being able to pay a life and sacrifice off a creature and getting a really good benefit is crazy, because like usually when it comes to like drawing a card on that kind of stuff, it's usually like an enchantment or something that says when a creature dies you get to draw a card, but it doesn't have a sacrifice outlet on it. This one, it has a sacrifice outlet on it. Paying a life is kind of whatever. Then you put a -1/-1 counter on another creature, which can interact with other things that give -1/-1 counters or interact with it, -1/-1 counters. And then you also get a draw card. It's very good. It's just too many things. And then on top of that, it has Proliferate. It's crazy. Too many things. Does too many things. Discarding cards, if you want to do Madness, Madness was a weird example, but you could do it. Or if you're just trying to get stuff in your graveyard so you can reanimate it. The Proliferate helps you do poison or anything. There's too many. Just too many. Crazy. But very, very good. Then we're going to go ahead and go to our Commander of the Night. This is Borough Titan of Nature's Wrath. This is from the new Theros Beyond Death set. This is a 1 colorless blue-green legendary creature, Elder Giant, and it's a 6/6. So this is, of course, can be a commander. And when this guy enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. Escaped is a new mechanic. Let's go ahead and go read that. So escape, you can pay green, blue. You exile 5 other cards from your graveyard. So this is kind of like the big escape thing. You pay some amount of mana, and then you exile some amount of cards, and then you can cast this from your graveyard for its escape cost. So basically, as long as you meet those criteria, you can play it from your graveyard. Then, when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Then you may put a land from the battlefield, put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this is another like really stacked card, I feel. So when we think about it, not escaped, because when you come to the play, you will sacrifice it if it wasn't escaped. When we think about this, this is a 3 mana, gain 3 life, draw a card, and put a land on the battlefield. So basically, when we kind of look at this, his mana cost is costs 1 more mana than Explore, which Explores basically it costs green, colorless, and you get to draw a card and play a land. And so the good thing about this is that you can get a sacrifice trigger off, which there are some cards that will enjoy this. Since it's in blue, it's not as good. So for something like Corvold, where if something gets sacrificed, you get to draw a card and put a +1/+1 counter on them. Since it's in blue, you can't actually play that in Corvold, at least commander-wise. But I'm sure there's other cards that in these colors, like Sultai would probably enjoy this. But aside from that, the escape cost, if you kind of build around this, you can basically make a dredge deck a little bit, and then you're focusing more on you're not focusing so much as getting cards back from your graveyard, but you're trying to utilize the cards in your graveyard to exile them. So it would probably go good in a Tasigur deck, escape cards, just because Tasigur is trying to specifically weed out bad cards in his graveyard so he can bring them back. So then we have to consider, okay, well, 3 mana for an Explorer and gaining 3 life, it's kind of whatever. It's not It's not like amazing or bad. It's just kind of, do you like explore? Okay. But then we have to consider that, okay, the escape cost here is green, green, blue, blue. So at that point in time is that, so if he wasn't your commander and you dredged him, for instance, then basically you're paying 4 mana for a 6/6 that has draw a card, gain 3 life, and put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. I feel like that's pretty strong. I feel like this is a card that, I mean, price point aside, because I don't trust these price points, we'll see what happens later, but it seems like it could be pretty good, because it's good for... I also wanted to say on this is that I like this card, if it doesn't seem obvious. I think it could be a good 1 in 99, or it could be a decent commander, just because it's literally just mana ramp on your commander, draw a card, and mana ramp on your commander, and then when it's sacrificed, you can escape it. Basically, you're paying 4 for your commander. It's really good. I think it's really cool for a commander. But also, what I really enjoy about this one is that if you look at the Simic list of commanders, it seems like a ton of them are basically +1/+1 counters, or some form of that. And kind of the rest of them are some sort of mana ramp, I would say, or at least land matters or landfall. But I really enjoy that they put another one of kind of like the land matters. I don't know exactly what this archetype would be, but it just seems like a very solid commander that might see. I don't know about competitive. I'm not going to comment on that, but for regular play, this seems like it could be very strong, and I hope it kind of goes down so I can get one. Yeah, but let's see. And then our random card for the night doesn't really interact with Uro, but I like it quite a bit. This is Shadow Spear. Shadow Spear is a 1 colorless legendary artifact equipment. It has equipped creature gets +1/+1, trample, and lifelink. So all that together is pretty good. Having trample and lifelink, giving trample on equipment's good. Having lifelink is good. I found that lifelink, or any kind of gain life in a commander deck at least, is actually pretty nice. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, getting life isn't really my theme. I don't really need that. But even just getting like a little bit extra life here and there can really, really help, I feel. And I feel like this giving trample gives you away. So if you have big creatures, that's great. And then getting that lifelink just helps you survive a little bit more. And getting +1/+1 isn't bad either. And it has a equip cost of 2. So that's not too bad. If it was 1, it'd be even crazier. But it has a equip cost of 2. And then its other big ability here is for 1 colorless, and I don't think this even has to be technically equipped to the creature, but for 1 colorless, permanents your opponent's control, lose hexproof and indestructible in a turn. I think this is a very, very, very good utility card that could probably go in a ton of EDH decks. Maybe not all, like especially non-creature decks. But what's really nice about this is that there are lands, for instance, where you can pay like, I forget exactly what it is, but maybe pay like 1 to 3 mana, tap the land, and then your opponents lose hexproof, or they lose shroud, or something like that until end of turn. What I really like about Shadow Spear is that when you put those lands in there, there's a semi chance that you're just going to be wasting that slot to some degree. But with Shadow Spear, it's like, okay, this is really good utility, so on the semi off chance they have indestructible, or semi off chance that they have hexproof, then you can get rid of that. This is really good, I think, especially when the gods are coming out, and a lot of them are indestructible enchantments, which are very, very hard to get rid of. So having this in there makes those god decks a little weaker. Not much weaker, but a little weaker. But you're not wasting just a slot on that. You're not just putting a 1 mana artifact in there that sometimes is useful. You also get all the other stuff, which was the +1/+1 trample and lifelink. I think this is a really, 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 really good utility equipment, and I stand by this one. I like this one quite a bit. If this goes down in price, I'm gonna buy some and put them in tons of my commander decks. Hopefully, maybe we'll see. But I do like it quite a bit. And then we'll be ending off our night, as always, with a couple of random cards. So a random card number 1 here is Off Balance. This is a 1 white instant. Target creature can't attack or block this turn. This is it's okay. I'd rather just have a card that says basically like tap all your opponent's creatures or something like that. And I guess this could be one of those things that can kind of throw off your opponent. Just be like, okay, I guess I didn't expect me not to be able to attack, or I didn't expect me not to block, but I feel like there are better things out there. So it's whatever. Nothing great. But what can you do? Let's go ahead and go to our random card number 2, which is Deathboard, which is another 1 white instant card, which has regenerate target creature. Yet again, this is kind of like one of those things that there's probably better cards than this. There's, just Teferi's Protection, great. Aside from Teferi's $40 protection, it's one of those things where you can throw somebody off. You know, like they probably don't expect you to have this card, that's for sure. But they might expect you to be able to regenerate one of your creatures like that. People maybe expect more like than white. They probably expect you to kill their stuff more than, even though white has a good sub-theme of protecting and gaining life, I still don't think people are expecting things like, I'm going to prevent 5 damage, or I'm going to regenerate target creature. So it's okay. I feel like it's more unexpected, but nah, whatever. Let's go and do one more. Let's see if we can get another 1 white card. No, but it is white. Always Watching. This is a 1 colorless white enchantment. Non-creature tokens you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. This one I like fairly well. This is if you're going for white weenie decks, for instance, this is just good to have. I mean, you know, let's say turn 1 you put out a 1/1, turn 2 you put out a 2/2, put out Always Watching next turn. Now you have a 2/2 and a 3/3 that have vigilance, and you're probably going to be attacking, not worrying too much, I'd say. So that was a pretty decent card. Also, like they look kind of like ravens or crows, but they're all, I guess, demonic angels. Maybe it should be a black-white card, but I do like the artwork on this. It kind of reminds me of just crows sitting on top of buildings. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you next time, and have a good one.